Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. In the last part, we got here to the Ice Palace and now we're gonna do this damn place. Ladies and gentlemen, my least favorite dungeon in the game begins. Well, least favorite on the Super Nintendo version. This is actually one of the areas that has some of the most changes in the Game Boy Advance version. In fact, I think they changed a good amount of the map in the GBA version. I forget exactly how much because I haven't played the Game Boy Advance version since like 2008, but I remember that they changed it to some extent, and I know why too, because there's one part in this that's just really stupid. Anyway, this room that I'm about to do right here is completely optional. By killing all these penguin things, who are really annoying enemies by the way, if they hit you, they've hurt a lot. You get the compass. Obviously I'm taking the cheatsy approach because I like cowering in fear, damn it. Seriously though, I do love abusing stuff like that because not being able to get hit is always so satisfying. And push that. This is a part of the... This room's kind of weird because you end up going through it only these few times, but you end up going back and forth through it, which is odd to me. It's a strategy that makes sense, but it always kind of stood out as just a weird part of the game to me. Now, since I've already done the Misery Mire, there's actually two things I can do in this room. I can either use a bomb or the Cane of Somaria to get through this in order to lower the blocks here. And fall down here. Now, as I mentioned before, technically speaking, these tiles are... Well, first off, they're talking about a new enemy here. Skeleton Knight. These would later become just normal Stelphos, depending on the game. But the way you kill them is that you hit them with your sword and then you bomb them to death. This is something that the later Zelda games, as I just mentioned, would take and run, depending on the game. I know Wind Waker did it. I think Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time did it once. I entirely forget. I forget for the most part, though. It's been a while. Sadly. But as I mentioned before, the telepathic tiles are technically being voiced by Zelda in this area in the Dark World, not Sahasrara beyond, I think, the Dark Palace. But I don't care. In fact, I don't think I read another one of those for the rest of the game. But yeah, by the way, we're pretty close to the end of the game, all things considered. Keep in mind, after this dungeon, we only have two left. Turtle Rock, which they've already mentioned thanks to the end of Misery Mire, because that's technically supposed to be after this. And the final dungeon. In fact, I'd say this game is probably going to end on part 15. I don't know, because I made a mistake in numbering my parts, and I can't quite recall what the mistake was. I just know I made one. Now, I have to say, though, I really like the look of this dungeon. It's funny, ice areas, as annoying as they can get, I've always loved the way they look and the way they sound. Like, ice areas and water areas have, like, the best music in a game at any given point. Anyway, that's Quake, I think is what it was called? Yeah. That's like the one of two times you're going to be using it in the entire game. You also could have used Bombos there, but Quake is faster. Cower in fear from the blade trap, and then head left. Actually, now thinking about that, yeah, I guess this is one of the large blade traps were introduced. I usually think they were introduced in like the Oracle games or something. Interesting. I hate this staircase, by the way. Due to the ice physics in this game, which are pretty terrible, honestly, it's really hard to get in the dead center of that staircase, meaning it's hard to get into it. There is where the dungeon item is, but we still need to get some stuff first. And there's a key in there. I really do wish that they had unique dungeon music, depending on the dungeon, though, which... I understand why they didn't do it because, first off, this was not launched for Super Nintendo, but they wanted to, I guess, go back to some amount of basics, considering how Zelda 2 was so radically different than Zelda 1. Because that's really what Link to the Past is when you get down to it. It's pretty much just a much prettier, much more refined Zelda 1 formula. The story is still not much worth much, but hey! Actually, I believe I mentioned it before, but every Zelda game I've actually played thus far, which are pretty much all the 2D ones aside from Link's Awakening, and Four Swords Adventures and Four Swords in general, really, they're all on one timeline, I believe. I think it's the hero is defeated timeline from Ocarina. I would reach up and get my Hyrule Historia, but I don't want to knock something over. I believe it is, though. I know for a fact that I think this is the first game on that timeline, followed by, I think, the Oracle games, then Link's Awakening. I know they're all the same Link for all four of those games. And he's actually arguably the strongest Link, though I still think that's the Majora's Mask Link, just due to the fact of his transformation masks. And the Fierce Deity's mask. Anyway, they're telling you to prepare for yourself with the Medicine and Magic, which I recommend you have for this place, because this dungeon is huge. How big? We'll see in a moment when I get the dungeon map. Yeah, we don't get it for a bit in this dungeon. Because if I recall, this entire part's actually this dungeon. Should be, if I recall how long this part is. That's threatening. Ha, nope. I think there's something in that room to the right there. As you can see, there's a bumpable wall there, but I've never been quite sure. Yeah, by the way, the hookshot is great. Honestly, though, I think the hookshot is probably the most useful in this game in particular, because in... what's it called? Words. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. It's useful, but you only really ever use it to get to certain places. And against the bosses that require them, really. Actually, I forget, what... No, actually, the... Well, technically it's required in Majora's Mask, but not for a boss fight. It's just for the Pirate's Fortress that really uses it to death. No, 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 no. That's so dickishly placed. Legitimately, I had one playthrough where I walked right into it because there's no way I could have known I was there ahead of time, because that was my first playthrough. I walked right into it. I suppose it's a noob trap. Anyway, this part's kind of gross. Pull on this guy's tongue to open the door. Though from this position now, with it out that much, looks less like a tongue and more like something else. Anyway, this is how big this dungeon is. 8 floors. Thankfully, the floors get pretty much smaller as you go along, but still, that's a bit too large, if you ask me. The dungeons that are like 6+ floors, I think should be reserved for final dungeon or second to last dungeon. In this type of game, at least, action-adventure RPG kind of thing. Pure RPGs, go right ahead, make them as many floors as you want. I mean, hell, look at Persona 3. The entire game's technically the final dungeon. And that's like, what, 263 floors? I forget the exact number. It's been a while since I last played Persona 3. I still haven't even played Persona Q. But then again, I went back to the first-person perspective of the really, really old SMT games, which I'm not entirely fond of. And we're back here. I really do hate this game's ice physics. Once you start getting yourself moving, it's not as bad, but it's starting to move that's annoying. And having to precisely move to get into this damn staircase. Don't even look like the panels don't even look like ice panels. They look more like disco panels you'd see in a Kirby game or something. Oh, and I should mention, I absolutely love these enemies. They're killed by one shot of the fire rod, but I love their animation. They look like they're just going, ooga booga ooga ooga ooga. Ow. And we got some BAMs. And in here we find the dungeon item, which is the blue mail. This armor reduces the damage you take from enemies, so we now take half damage. This is why going to this place... this is what makes Misery Mire easier, because enemies did so much damage to me in there, I now take half damage from all of them. However, I still prefer to go to Misery Mire first, because having the Cane of Somaria is a lot more useful for this place. Ow! No, what would be heavier, the skeleton or the armor? Yes, hello, sir. I require your assistance. Thank you. And here's where the dungeon gets easier. You see, the thing is, if you didn't have the Cane of Somaria, what you had to do is head right and go through this really, really stupidly long backtrack pretty much to bring a block down to this floor to step on the switch, because this is one of those ones that will only stay activated as long as you're on it. However, if you have the Cane of Somaria, you can say screw that section of the dungeon and just go right down here to the second to last room of the dungeon. That is pretty much the main section that they changed in the Game Boy Advance version, as far as I recall. That entire really long, obnoxious section. I'm so glad they did that. The Game Boy Advance version also added an entirely new dungeon called the Palace of the Four Sword, where you needed to beat the Four Swords game that came with it. It's an interesting little place. I might show it off at some point via like a live stream or something, but I need to beat the game on the Game Boy Advance again, which I don't feel like doing. Maybe if I can download a save file. And down here is, if you can't figure it out, the boss fight. Meet Kholdstare. The first phase of Kholdstare can only be hurt by a fire attack, be it, I think 1 bombos use or 8 shots with the fire rod. And after that, phase 2 begins, which I recommend using the Cane of Burna with, and then just striking every single one of the Kholdstares that comes out of it, all 3 of them. It takes 6 sword slashes each to take them out with a temper sword. However, you can also use, I think it's 4 uses of the fire rod, but that also wastes a lot of magic, so you might as well just use the freaking Cane of Burna at that rate. Kholdstare is thankfully one of those cases of pretty hard dungeon, or annoying dungeon at least, but very easy boss. And with that, 1 maiden left to go. I do like the look of the blue in this game, though. It's a bit more fitting considering Link's oddly purple hair, but I know that's due to palette reasons, if I recall. Let's see if you start up. Yep, you're starting off the exact same stuff. Are you all like a hive mind or something? They say the Hylia people controlled mysterious powers, as did the 7 wise men. But the blood of the Hylia has become thin over time. We who carry the blood of the 7 wise men do not possess strong power anymore, either. Our powers will increase if we mix the courage of the knights with the wisdom of the wise men. Only a short time remains until the gate at the castle linking the worlds opens completely. If you defeat Ganon, this world will vanish and the Triforce will wait for a new holder. I believe in you. Good luck. Yes, I understand. Lord, you don't have to tell me that. May the leader wait the way the hero lead the Triforce. Yeah, whatever. Actually, if I recall, this was the first game to actually call it the Triforce and actually mean all 3 Triforces at once. By the way, we're back here. You've seen this place enough times to know where we are. Because in Zelda 1, it was only the Triforce of Wisdom and Power. And Zelda 2, they brought in the Triforce of Courage at the very end. But that was what your quest was for. This was the first game to actually show all 3 on screen at once as the Triforce as we've come to know it, the gigantic triangle. Anyway, before we end things off, I do have a side quest I want to do. We want to buy this giant bomb for, I think it's it's like 50 rupees. Huh. This giant bomb is useful for one thing and one thing only. However, with it, you cannot jump off ledges and you cannot use your Pegasus boots. So, we need to walk it. Where do we need to walk it? We need to walk this thing all the way to the Pyramid of Power where we entered the Dark World at. And that sounds like a long trip, but it's really not. I think you also can't get hit while doing this, but don't quote me on that. I'm just being overly cautious. Because, it's honestly just the best err on the side of caution when you're not really sure about things. Oh, Lord. Oh, by the way, I'm late in mentioning this, but if you dash into trees, sometimes they'll drop items, be it fairies, bombs, or otherwise. Either way, dash away with it, and the bomb shall explode with a very long timer. And that is the only way you can open up this door, which leads to... another mysterious pond? Well, this is familiar. Yeah, let's throw an item in. Yeah, the bow and arrow, why not? Oh, Lord, you're... different. Either way, it's the usual thing. We need to give it the honesty, and actually, this is required because you have to upgrade the bow and arrow into the silver arrows that we need to defeat Ganon. Which I think is just a downright reference to Zelda 1. However, we also want to throw one other thing in. Let's see. Nope, 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 nope. Nope, 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 yes, no, no, go back, go back. There we go. Let's throw in our tempered sword. And let's do the usual, yes, I dropped that, blah, blah, blah. Give me something better in return, and for that, we get the Sword of Gold. It is the strongest sword in the game at level 4. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 13, we'll be heading over to Turtle Rock. See you guys then.